There are people who seem to have a strained or forced relationship with Lovecraft, where they seem to appreciate the tentacle monsters and the weirdness and the general merchandising potential of the whole thing. But it always comes with a big asterisk at the bottom. It always comes with a condemnation of H.P. Lovecraft and his racism. It goes to the point where there's this sort of effort to, I guess, reappropriate a Lovecraft in this Lovecraft Country show. That was also based on a novel, but the show is like the big talking point right now, where you cast some black people and you throw in some Jim Crow stuff and some evil racist white people, and you get some bottom tier BuzzFeed style news places to write some articles about how woke and how great it is to reappropriate the mythos. Really, it's not about the mythos. It's about the brand. They want to reappropriate the the plushies and the lunchboxes and the HBO time slot, and just kind of make it more palatable for today's progressive. H.P. Lovecraft is playing for our team, or the tentacle monsters are playing for our team, and it's sort of a weird, sort of self-defeating way to go about it, I think. And you gotta question the motivations of these people, whether they actually like Lovecraft, or they just want to, again, sell the imagery that goes along with it. They want the aesthetic is really what they want. They want the aesthetic without the substance, because I think H.P. Lovecraft's racism is inextricable from all the other stuff. It's inextricable from everything that people like. Rather than being an asterisk or a but or the unpleasant sort of byproduct of enjoying Lovecraft, it really is sort of the nuts and the foundation is built on racism. And I don't mean that as a value judgment or whatever. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that so if you read Lovecraft, he's got lots of these really keen articulations of paranoia and a sense of otherness and of being a small fish in a big uncaring universe. And it's all seems to be tied to his racism. His personal paranoias and his personal prejudices seem to wholly inform every instance of it in his writing, even if he's not deliberately. There's passages where it's more like the sallow faced, slant-eyed Orientals were leering from the shadows. I don't mean that more explicit parts, but the more sort of oblique references to elder space gods and whatnot. But anyway, I think people, they want to sanitize Lovecraft, I think, for a few different reasons. One is, I think that they're afraid to admit that racism could ever be a creative motivator. I think people, they think of creation as coming from a just place for whatever reason. Everything is sort of created with a sense of justice in mind. The idea that someone could have a prejudice that sort of leads to something enlightening is unpalatable or unthinkable. And I think there's that. And I think there's the sense that in acknowledging the potency of his expressions of paranoia and persecution, I think in acknowledging the validity of that, they're somehow afraid that they're acknowledging the validity of his racism or something like that. Like, if you like Lovecraft, then maybe you're secretly like, oh, that guy, he might have a point about all that other stuff. He might have a point about the Italians and the sallow-faced Orientals. That's another thing about sort of this Lovecraft Country show is this idea that for some reason that I understand that it's sort of the somebody just throw a fucking cup out of their car. Some motherfucker just threw a fucking cup out of their vehicle like it was nothing. Like this was their fucking playground. Whatever. Whatever. Anyway, this idea that I understand it's part of the national conversation right now with black people in specific, but the idea that black people for some reason have this sole possession of racism when a lot of Lovecraft's writings were just literally like he hated everybody, like black people, Asian people, Italians, Irish. He hated, the Irish, the scheming, drunken Irish. I don't know. The idea of contextualizing it in a purely American Jim Crow era African American centered racism. It's sort of an I don't know. It's only one piece of the puzzle. It's sort of an incomplete picture of the guy's prejudices. He literally he literally didn't like anybody. And another thing is, so if you're constantly after a moral integrity in everything that you do, in everything that you consume, if every piece of art, if every motivation behind every piece of art has to have a consistent moral integrity for the person who's consuming it in that way, you got to wonder, are the tentacle monsters really that important? Is the Lovecraft aesthetic really that important? If in preserving the aesthetic that you have to sort of reconfigure whatever morals and motivation went into the base of it, like in the foundation of it. If you have to sort of ignore and subvert and twist the foundation of Lovecraft to preserve the aesthetic, is the aesthetic really that important? If you are that, if you want to be that consistent in your morals. Anyway, was that all that I wanted to say about this? You just gotta sort of let Lovecraft be Lovecraft, to be honest, and you have to let him be racist. You don't have to not acknowledge it, but you have to accept it. If you want to enjoy it, if you're intent on enjoying Lovecraft and enjoying the aesthetic and the great mythos and the pantheon of tentacle monsters, you have to accept the racism, and you have to accept the racism as a creative motivator, as a creative instigation of the entire thing. I don't think reading Lovecraft is going to turn you into a racist. When I read the more overt passages, the more explicit racist passages, I just sort of laugh at it the way that you would a half senile old man leaning down to whisper his bigoted ideas in your head. And I understand that in 2020 you're not allowed to think things are funny anymore. You're not allowed to joke or find amusement in that sort of thing. I know that's a big faux pas, but I personally I don't know. You can just shrug it off, is what I say. You don't have to take it into your heart. You don't have to let it wound your spirit. He was a man who fucking died in 1910 or something. He lived 100 years ago. He wrote some cool stories. You don't have to take his racism into your heart. You don't have to let it warp you and turn you into a neurotic mess. Just let yourself enjoy Lovecraft. Let Lovecraft be Lovecraft. If you want to enjoy it, let yourself enjoy it. You don't have to get bent up about it, I guess. All right. I think I've said my piece. Goodbye.